Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Vanessa. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my horror bingo TBR. If you have no idea what horror bingo is, it is a bingo board that was created by Sarah over at Wicked Reading. So she has essentially found that, or not found, that there are no horror bingo boards. There are plenty of like fantasy bingo boards, but there are no horror bingo boards. So she created this really cool bingo board, which I'll post a picture up here. And I'm just going to be talking about the books that I am going to be reading for this year-long challenge. Now it takes place from October 1st, 2024, all the way through September 30th of 2025. There are also hard modes attached to each prompt. Almost every prompt. I have tried for a lot of these to achieve hard mode with them, and then for most of these books I have tried also to make sure that they are horror or have horror involved, but there may be one or two like mystery thriller kinds of books, which Sarah said is okay. Like in the instructions she talks about most of the books should be horror for this, but obviously like just read. So the first prompt is published in 2024, and the hard mode for this is to finish that book before 2024 ends. I'm not going to give you the synopsis for any of these books. I'm just going to be showing you what's on my TBR. But a book that's been going around quite a bit lately because it just came out is Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. I'm so excited for this. I was instantly like just intrigued because the cover looks really cool, but I've also heard really good things about this author, and I've had a couple of friends read this recently that I've like watched their reviews of this book, and it sounds like something that would be very interesting to me. So I'm very excited to read this one. I will likely read this in October. I'll hit hard mode pretty easily by doing that. The next prompt is called The End Times Are Near. So it's a book that's considered apocalyptic. Hard mode is the book includes an epilogue. So I did a little bit of research, and if any of these books are not aligning with the prompt correctly, like if you've read this book and you're like, that is wrong, please let me know, because I went in to this pretty blind. I don't know a lot about these books, and I'm not a huge horror reader. I was actually very surprised how many horror books I had on my TBR for this. I'm trying to read down my physical TBR, but a couple of these I did check out from the library. So for this one, I actually chose to go with one through the library, and I picked Feed by Myra Grant. And I know nothing, absolutely nothing about this book, so I have nothing to tell you about it. The next prompt is This is Halloween. This is a book that takes place on or around Halloween. And for hard mode, trick-or-treating is mentioned. I went with Mayfly for this book. So what's really funny is that I had like randomly opened this book up to some page, and I didn't like write it down, but whatever page I had like randomly opened it to, it mentioned trick-or-treating, and I said, oh, that's perfect. Okay, so I do think this does take place on Halloween. I did a little bit of research for this, and then trick-or-treating was mentioned in this book. Blood on the Cover, a book that features blood imagery on the cover that you're reading. For hard mode, it's very recognizable, so like more than just a few drops of blood. And I decided to go with The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. So as you can see, there's lots of blood dripping all over this chair. And yeah, I'm excited to see if I like more of Grady Hendrix, because I read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires and was kind of bored. Do have another Grady Hendrix book on my TBR, so very excited to see if this author is someone for me. The next prompt is Woods/Wilderness. This is a book that uses the woods as a main setting. Hard mode, there are no trees on the cover. So I had to ask in Sarah's Patreon Discord for a little bit of help, because some of these prompts I really didn't know, but I'm going to be reading The Honeys. This is by Ryan LaSala. I've been told that this takes place in the woods and wilderness, and doesn't look like there's any trees on here, just a bunch of flowers. I absolutely love this book. Like, this book looks so pretty. Like, this is just me and the vibe of a book. Honoring the Classics, a book that's either considered a horror classic or is a reimagining or retelling of a classic. For hard mode, that classic has to be written before 1950. For this one, I chose Dracula, like the original Dracula, because I've never read it, and I think it would be very interesting to read it. Hopefully I'm not bored by it. Translated work. A book that is translated from the author's native language. And for hard mode, the book features a translator's note. So I had recently read a book by Sayaka Murata, which was called Earthlings, and that's a perfect book for this prompt. But I want to try to do this like starting October 1st. Like I don't want it to be starting September 2024. So I looked at this author's other works, and they actually have another book called Life Ceremony. It is a translated work. I don't know if there's a translator's note at the back because I don't have the book. I'd have to be getting this from my library, but I'm hoping there is. There was one in Earthlings, so I'm assuming there might be one in this one. So let's just cross our fingers. Cover pick. So a book that interests you because of the cover. Hard mode, base the book completely on the cover with no idea of like the synopsis. So I chose another CJ Lead book called American Rapture, and I know nothing about this book. I literally requested it off of NetGalley because of the cover. Looked very pretty. So yeah, can't tell you anything about this book other than that. Reaper Read. So this is to read a book where there's like themes of death and grief, just kind of anything associated with that. In hard mode is death is personified or otherwise symbolized as a physical being. I went off of one of Sarah's recommendations from her TBR video, and she had Here Goes Nothing. So this is like a great chance for me to kind of branch out and see other horror books and other horror authors. Like I have no idea what this book's about. A title that has a spooky word in it. So it could be a word like ghost, grave, death, haunt, something like that. And for hard mode, the title has 2 or more spooky words. So I couldn't find one off my physical TBR for this one, but I do have A Haunting in Venice, which I think this one is more mystery thriller than horror. So that's fine with me. Very excited to read an Agatha Christie book because I don't think I have read one. This is the book that was previously published as Halloween Party. So very excited to see what Agatha Christie's writing is like. Then we have Dead Man Walking. This one is a book that features reanimated corpses or zombies. For hard mode, this book is part of a series. So I don't think I hit the hard mode for this, but I do believe there are some sort of reanimated creatures in this one. So I have Pet Sematary by Stephen King, and Stephen King makes an appearance on my horror TBR a couple of times. Genre bending book. This is a book that combines horror with another genre, and for the hard mode for this one, it would be a genre that you typically don't read. So I am primarily a romance reader, and I would say I read more like dark romance, but I don't really read that much other stuff. I do have like quite an extensive fantasy collection, but I wouldn't really consider myself anything more than a romance reader. I do like other genres like fantasy, mystery, thriller, etc. So I'm gonna kind of cheat a little bit because there's not like a genre I wouldn't read. The book I picked for this is Malice House, and I picked this because I actually have an arc of the second book, which the second book's already out by now, but I would like to read the second book at some point. So Malice House is by Megan Shepherd, and I believe that it is a horror and mystery, or horror and thriller, or something like that. Okay, so a 5-star read. This is a book that you've rated 5 stars, or hard mode being a book that you predicted would be 5 stars. So I read one book by Nick Cutter so far, which was The Deep, and it was like just okay. It had potential, but I hear nothing but good things about The Troop by Nick Cutter. So I am predicting that this one is going to be a 5 stars, and I really hope that the people do not let me down. BIPOC author. So this is a book that's written by a BIPOC author. For hard mode, it would be that the author is new to you. I would rather read a book on my physical TBR than try to find something that I don't have that's on my TBR. So I have read from this author before. So I have Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. So unfortunately, I won't get to do the hard mode for this prompt, but I am a-okay with this because this book has been on my TBR for a hot minute, and I'd love to read more by this author because I really liked Gods of Jade and Shadow, and I would totally like reread that book again now that I'm thinking about it, even though it has nothing to do with horror. Ooh, okay, so cryptid is the next prompt. This is a book that features a cryptid creature. For hard mode, it has to be a creature that you're not familiar with the lore. So I have chosen Into the Drowning Deep by Myra Grant. And I think this one has to do with like mermaids. And I would say I don't really know too much about a lot of cryptid creatures. Like I've heard of them, but do I really know like a lot about mermaids other than like Ariel from The Little Mermaid? No. So yeah, we're gonna see what this one's about. I hear really good things about this one, and I might actually put this on my spooky season TBR because I've been dying to read this one. Next prompt is title that has a number. So it's a book that features a number, and for the hard mode, it would just be featuring multiple numbers. I don't have a book that has multiple numbers or even like a number associated word like midnight or half or inch or anything like that. At least I don't think I do, but I do have The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher, and I would be very interested in reading this one, so here it is. All right, Satanic Panic. So this is a book that features elements of the occult, with hard mode being a physical item is used in the book that falls under occult category, so like tarot cards, a Ouija board, a talisman. So I've heard, I believe that this one has some Satanic Panic stuff in it. I don't know if it uses any of these occult things. I'm assuming it might, but yeah, here's the other Grady Hendrix book that I'll be reading for this horror TBR. Book club pick. Okay, so this is obviously to read a pick from a book club. I am obviously part of Sarah's Patreon book club, and one of the books is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim, and I've been dying to read this book because I'm just like intrigued by the cover, the title, something about it, and we will hopefully see what this is about rather soon. Probably my favorite prompt on this board is pink horror, just because like it sounds cool. And this is a book that has themes of girlhood and womanhood, with the hard mode being the book is a debut. So I picked this book up a couple years ago at like a used book warehouse. So it is actually like the ARC version, but this is The Return by Rachel Harrison. I've heard that this is about like a couple girls and they're like in college or something. So I'm assuming there's like some sort of female like just trying to bond together and like help each other. And then this is Rachel Harrison's debut book. Multiple POV. So this is basically to read a book that has multiple POVs, points of view. The hard mode being that it also has dual or multiple timelines. So I couldn't quite get that, but I do have a library book that I'm going to be reading really soon called Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, and this does have multiple points of view. Okay, so probably my most intimidating book of this TBR, because of how massive it is As Seen on the Big Screen. So this is a book that has a film or show adaptation, and the hard mode being you haven't seen the film or the show. Yeah, I haven't seen this movie at all, nor have I read this book. It by Stephen King. It is big, and it is going to be read in October. I am manifesting this, so wish me lots of luck with this one because it is daunting. Out of Your Comfort Zone. So this is a book that is like a subgenre that you don't typically read. I'm assuming like a subgenre of horror. Hard mode being that you have read from the author before. As I've mentioned, I don't read a lot of horror, so this is all out of my comfort zone, and it is like a genre that's a lot newer to me, especially this year. So I have read from Eric LaRocca before, but I do have this book called Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Misfortunes, and it is like a short story collection. I think there's like 3 short stories in here or something like that. But yeah, this is like all out of my comfort zone, so I'm gonna give this a shot. Short story collection. So this is to basically read a short story collection, and the hard mode being that the collection features more than 12 stories. So I have an arc. It's called Beyond the Bounds of Infinity, and it has many different, like over 20 different short stories in it. And it is a cosmic horror anthology short story collection. and I've only read one story from it so far, so I'm interested in finishing out this and then obviously boosting that NetGalley score. TBR Vet. So a book that's been on your TBR for a long time. Hard Mode, a book that's been on your TBR for over 2 years. The Island by Adrian McKinty. So yeah, this was originally published in 2022. I picked this up a couple of years ago when I was at the beach on vacation, and I did read The Chain by Adrian McKinty. Loved it, so I'm very excited to see what this one's about. My bestie Brie has read this one and she really liked it, so I am very excited to give this one a shot. I don't think this one is horror. I think this one is more so thriller than anything, but a-okay. Another book that is going to get read off of my physical TBR. And I believe the last book on this TBR is Creepy Crawlies. So this is a book that features creepy crawlies like snakes, bugs, spiders, and then hard mode being that there's also imagery of the creepy crawlies on the cover. So we have Cackle by Rachel Harrison. So we have like some spiders on this cover, and yeah, I'm very excited to read this one. And I don't know, maybe I'll put it on my October TBR. This TBR for October is piling up already, and I'm like, shoot, save it for the rest of the year. Yeah, so that is my horror bingo TBR for the year. I have a couple of authors on here that have been featured twice. Some of them are by authors that I've read before, but I'm very happy that a huge portion of these books I already own, or I can get them for free through the library. This is going to be a really fun challenge to do, and I think what I'm going to try to do throughout the year as like a mini series on my channel is to vlog whenever I read the books from Horror Bingo, and it's just going to go like under a certain playlist that's featuring the Horror Bingo books. So that way I can like kind of look back and see my horror journey and see like how I grow as someone who is like just dipping their toe into horror. But thanks for clicking on today's video, and thanks Sarah for putting together this really cool reading challenge. I'm very excited to branch out into a genre that you primarily read. But if you have any suggestions for books that you're like, girl, that was not fitting the prompt at all, please let me know. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have nothing else to say and you've gotten to the end of this video, leave me a spider and or a spider web emoji, because this book, I love this cover, and it's like spooky season is upon us, and this is like a spooky challenge. Thanks guys, I'll catch you guys in the next one.